During World War II, while nearly all of Europe was ravaged, a small country in the heart of the continent seemed untouched. On one side, the Axis powers aggressively expanded their territories. On the other, the Allies resisted with all their might. Amid this chaos, Switzerland, a small nation surrounded by the great powers of the conflict, seemed to defy logic. While its neighbors were invaded, destroyed, and occupied, it remained unscathed. But why did no one dare to attack Switzerland? How did it manage to avoid the fate of so many other European countries? Was it luck, strategy, or was there something more? Discover now the secrets that allowed Switzerland to maintain its neutrality during the greatest conflict in modern history. Swiss neutrality did not begin with World War II. In fact, it was decided more than a century earlier at the Congress of Vienna in 1815. After Napoleon's fall, the European powers came together to redraw the political map of Europe and restore the thrones of royal families that had been defeated by his armies, as was the case with Portugal and Spain. In addition, they recognized the importance of a neutral territory in the heart of Europe. Switzerland became a kind of buffer zone, a strategic agreement to prevent new wars from turning the region into a battlefield. However, neutrality was not passive. From the beginning, it was built on a solid foundation of defense and diplomacy. Swiss leaders made it clear that their neutrality was not synonymous with weakness, but with prudence. This was tested several times during the 19th and early 20th centuries, such as in the World Wars. In World War II, this tradition of neutrality faced an even more challenging scenario. Nazi Germany, occupied France, and Fascist Italy surrounded the country. Despite the pressures and threats, Switzerland reaffirmed its position of neutrality, but knew that this time, mere words would not be enough. Throughout the war, the warring powers formally respected this neutrality, but Switzerland was not simply relying on the goodwill of its neighbors. As we will see, the country was prepared to fight, if necessary, to defend its sovereignty. Swiss neutrality was not synonymous with naivety. During World War II, the country prepared as if invasion were inevitable. And indeed, Switzerland knew that if it were attacked, it would have to turn its small nation into an impregnable fortress. At the heart of this strategy, known as the National Redoubt Plan, was an ambitious defensive scheme. The Alps, already offering formidable natural protection, were transformed into an even greater fortress. Tunnels were dug, bunkers were built, and arsenals were strategically hidden in the mountains. The idea was simple. If attacked, the Swiss would retreat into the mountains, where they could resist for a long time. Additionally, Switzerland adopted total military mobilization. Despite being a small country, with a population of around 4 million at the time, the Swiss army managed to mobilize nearly 850,000 soldiers. An impressive number, considering the nation's limited resources. The philosophy was clear. Every citizen had to be ready to defend the country. This mindset ensured that Switzerland had a well-trained army spread throughout its territory. Additionally, every bridge, tunnel, and strategic road was ready to be destroyed in case of invasion, making any enemy advance extremely difficult. Adolf Hitler considered the possibility of invading Switzerland. Documents reveal that Germany had detailed plans for an operation called Tannenbaum, meaning Christmas tree. After the conquest of French territory, one of the next objectives of the German army was the invasion of Liechtenstein and Switzerland. However, the high military cost and the uncertainty of a quick victory made these plans unappealing. The Swiss determination to resist to the last man also weighed heavily in the balance. The military strategy was just one part of the puzzle. The country also used diplomacy and its economy brilliantly to survive. While the fortifications in the Alps and military mobilization were essential in repelling an invasion, Switzerland's diplomacy and economy were equally decisive for its survival. During World War II, the country used its strategic position in the heart of Europe to play both sides. One of the most controversial factors was the role of Swiss banks. Switzerland became a safe haven for gold and wealth belonging to warring nations, often of questionable origin. Nazi Germany, for example, transferred large amounts of looted gold to Swiss banks, which acted as intermediaries for international transactions. Switzerland was not limited to acting as a vault for wealth during wartime. It was also a diplomatic bridge. The country maintained trade relations with both sides of the conflict, supplying materials such as precision tools, watches, and, in some cases, coal to Germany. These trade agreements helped preserve its economy, but also raised suspicions of complicity. Switzerland was also a refuge for spies, political exiles, and prisoners of war. Geneva, in particular, became a center for secret negotiations, allowing crucial information to flow between the Allies and the Axis. Amid the devastation of World War II, Switzerland stood out not only for its neutrality, but also for the humanitarian role it played. The country hosted the headquarters of the International Red Cross, which, since its founding in 1863, had the mission of alleviating suffering in times of war. During the conflict, Switzerland acted as an intermediary in prisoner negotiations, family communication, and the sending of supplies to concentration camps and war zones. The International Red Cross coordinated monumental efforts to assist prisoners of war, sending over 36 million care packages and recording about 120 million messages between soldiers and their families. Swiss neutrality was crucial in enabling these operations, as the warring countries trusted the organization's humanitarian commitment. Switzerland also opened its borders to refugees, though some controversies exist. It is estimated that around 300,000 people sought asylum in the country, including Jews fleeing Nazi persecution. However, Switzerland's immigration policy faced criticism, as it often rejected people in desperate situations, fearing it would overwhelm the country's resources. This delicate balance, however, was not easy to maintain. On several occasions, both the Allies and the Axis pressured Switzerland to choose a side. In 1943, for example, the United States threatened to boycott Swiss banks if they continued facilitating German transactions. On the other hand, Germany constantly warned of the possibility of invasion if Switzerland collaborated too much with the Allies. In addition to the military strategy and skilled diplomacy, Switzerland had an invaluable natural ally: its geography. The Alps, which cover about 60% of Swiss territory, made any invasion a monumental logistical challenge. For any army, crossing such hostile mountains would not only be dangerous, but also extremely slow and costly. In the heart of Europe, Switzerland resembled a natural fortress. Its narrow valleys and steep mountains formed natural barriers that could be easily defended. The Swiss defense plan made the most of these features, turning tunnels and gorges into traps set to explode at the slightest sign of invasion. Another crucial factor was the lack of incentives for prolonged occupation. Unlike other countries invaded during the war, Switzerland did not offer vast natural resources nor strategic access to other regions. This made any attempt at conquest an effort that, in the end, would not be worth it. Additionally, Switzerland had a limited road and rail system, concentrated mainly on routes that could be easily destroyed. The absence of adequate transportation infrastructure made logistics even more complicated for invading forces. For the Nazi and Italian armies, the natural barriers and the lack of immediate gains made Switzerland a dispensable option in their strategic planning. The Alps were an obstacle as powerful as any military defense line. Switzerland's survival during World War II was the result of a combination of geography, military strategy, skilled diplomacy, and economic pragmatism. However, this neutrality did not come without its price. Throughout the conflict, Switzerland faced criticism from both allies and adversaries for its controversial choices, especially in trade and banking transactions. In the end, Switzerland's neutrality served as an example of how a small country could use its geography and politics to navigate through one of the most turbulent periods in history. But it also carries the weight of difficult decisions that are still debated today. And that was today's video. If you liked it, leave a like to support my work, and I'll see you in the next video.